Good evening or good morning, wherever you are in the world. I'm Denisha Rajendran, and I'm moderating the 11th YouTube session of the 7th fall edition of our Read for Pixels campaign. Through Read for Pixels, the Pixel Project is collaborating with 12 award-winning, best-selling authors to raise awareness about violence against women and to raise funds for the Pixel Project to keep our efforts to end violence against women alive and kicking. We'll be telling you more about the Read for Pixels fundraiser, which has lots and lots of exclusive author goodies a little later in this session. And you can find out more about the Pixel Project by visiting www.thepixelproject.net. So today we have a very special guest, the fabulous Shannon Kirk, who will be joining us for our live Read for Pixels discussion and Q&A session. Shannon is a multiple award-winning author of Method 1533, which is optioned for film and an international bestseller for Viberry Grove, Gretchen, In the Vines, and The Extraordinary Journey of Vivienne Marshall. She is a practicing attorney and former law professor in Massachusetts, where she lives with her husband and son. Shannon writes in several genres: literary fiction, suspense, thriller, and young adult. She is a member of International Thriller Writers and Mystery Writers of America. Shannon has also generously donated a couple of awesome treats to the stash of author goodies we have as perks for donors at the Read for Pixels Rally Up fundraising page. The first goodie is the Shannon Kirk book bundle for beginners. This is for US donors only. Shannon will be putting together a bundle featuring all her books signed and personalized, including Method 1533, Viberry Grove, Gretchen, In the Vines, The Extraordinary Journey of Vivienne Marshall, and The Night of the Flood. Plus, she'll also be tucking in some really gorgeous surprise swag. The second goodie is Shannon will critique 30 pages of your work in progress. So this is available to donors worldwide. Shannon is offering a chance for one donor to get a written critique from her via email. This opportunity includes one written critique of the first 30 pages of your work in progress and one round of up to 3 follow-up questions via email with Shannon after she has sent you her critique. There is just one of this golden opportunity available, which would be perfect for any writer anywhere in the world who is focused on writing in the mystery crime genre. So Shannon's goodies are now up on our fundraising page, but you better hurry up to donate it if you want it, because she only has one of each type of goodie. So once someone snaps it up, it's gone. We've actually raised $2,915 towards our 5,000 goal so far, which is our slowest fundraiser yet. So please give generously before the fundraiser ends on 18th of October 2020. All funds go towards the Pixel Project's work to help end violence against women, which we need now more than ever. And if you're watching this session on YouTube right now, you will also be able to ask Shannon questions live. So just make sure you're logged into your YouTube account so that you can type your questions into the chat box to the right of the YouTube screen. And our YouTube moderator, Xiao Chin, who is today's producer and chat box moderator, will relay them to me, and I will read them out to Shannon to answer. And so now over to Shannon. Welcome to Read for Pixels.
Thank you so much, Denisha. Thanks for having me.
No worries. So you can proceed with your reading.
Okay, great. I'm going to read from 2 things today. I'm going to read from my first novel, Method 1533. This is actually the UK cover that they renamed to The Method, but it's the same thing. And I'm also going to read a poem from Cynthia Sina Pelayo's Into the Forest and All the Way Through. And this is a really special poetry book about violence against women. And I'll explain more of that when I get to reading that. So I'm going to read the first couple of pages from Method 1533. And the setup here is, this is about a 16-year-old girl who is pregnant, and she has been kidnapped, and she has been held in captivity. The difference with this character is that she is a clinical sociopath. And so the question is, how does a vulnerable, because she's pregnant and 16, sociopath deal with being in captivity? Chapter 1, 4 to 5 days in captivity. I lay there on the 4th day plotting his death. Compiling assets in a list in my mind, I found relief in the planning. A loose floorboard, a red knit blanket, a high window, exposed beams, a keyhole, my condition. I remember my thoughts then as though I am reliving them now, as though they are my present thoughts. There he is outside the door again, I think, even though it's been 17 years. Perhaps those days will forever be my present because I survived so completely in the minutiae of each hour and each second of painstaking strategy. During that intellable time of torment, I was all on my own. And I must say now, with no lack of pride, my result, my undeniable victory, was no less than a masterpiece. On day 4, I was well into a catalog of assets and a rough outline of revenge, all without aid of pen or pencil, solely the mental sketch pad of piecing together potential solutions, a puzzle I knew, but one I was determined to solve. A loose floorboard, a red knit blanket, a high window, exposed beams, a keyhole, my condition. How do they fit together? Over and over, I reconstituted this enigma and searched for more assets. Ah, yes, of course, the bucket. And yes, the box spring is new. He did not remove the plastic. Okay, again, go over it again. Figure it out. Exposed beams, a bucket, the box spring, the plastic, a high window, a loose floorboard, a red knit blanket, I assigned numbers to give a dose of science. A loose floorboard, asset number 4. A red knit blanket, asset number 5. Plastic. The collection seemed as complete as possible at the start of day 4. I would need more, I figured. The sound of the pine floor rattling outside my jail cell, a bedroom, interrupted me about midday. He's definitely out there. Lunch. The latch moved from left to right. The keyhole turned, and in he burst without the decency of even a pause at the threshold. As he had at every other meal, he dropped on my bed a tray of now familiar food, a white mug of milk, and a child-sized cup of water. No utensils. The slice of egg and bacon quiche collided with the homemade bread on the plate, a disc of china with a rose-colored toile of a woman with a pot, and a feather hat wearing man with a dog. I loathed that plate to such an unnatural depth I shudder to remember. The backside said Wedgwood and Salvatore. This will be my 5th meal on this salvation. I hate this plate. I will kill this plate too. The plate, the mug, and the cup looked to be the same ones I had used for breakfast, lunch, and dinner on day 3 in captivity. The first 2 days I spent in a van. More water? He asked in his abrupt, dull, and deep monotone. Yes, please. He started this pattern on day 3, which, I believe, is what kicked off my plotting in earnest. The question became part of the routine, him bringing my meal and asking if I wanted more water. I decided to say yes when he asked, and steeled myself to say yes each time, although this sequence made no sense. Why not bring a larger cup of water to begin with? Why this inefficiency? He leaves, locks the door, pipes clank in the hall walls, a spit, and then a burst of water from the sink, out of eyesight through the keyhole. He's back with a plastic cup of lukewarm water. Why? I can tell you this. Many things in this world are unsolved, as is the rationale behind many of my jailer's inexplicable actions. Thank you, I said upon his return. I had decided from hour 2 of day 1 that I'd try to feign a schoolgirl politeness. Be thankful. For I soon discovered I could outwit my captor, a man in his 40s. Must be 40-something. He looks the same age as my dad. I knew I had the wits to beat this horrible, disgusting thing, and I was just sweet 16. Lunch on day 4 tasted like lunch on day 3, but perhaps the sustenance gave me what I needed because I realized I had many more assets. Time, patience, undying hatred, and I noted, as I drank the milk from the thick restaurant mug, the bucket had a metal handle and the handle ends were sharp. I need only remove the handle. It can be a separate asset from the bucket. Also, I was high in the building, not below ground, as I had first anticipated on days 1 and 2 I would be. By the crown of the tree outside my window and the 3 flights of stairs it took to get here, I was most surely on a 3rd floor. I considered height another asset. Strange, right? I had not yet grown bored by day 4. Some might think sitting alone in a locked room would cause a mind to give way to dementia or delusion. But I was lucky. My first 2 days were spent traveling, and by some colossal mistake or severe error in judgment, my captor used a van for his crime, and this van had tinted side windows. Sure, no one could see in, but I could see out. I studied and committed our route to the logbook in my mind. Details I never actually used, but the work of transcribing and burning the data to eternal memory occupied my thoughts for days. If you asked me today, 17 years later, what flowers were growing by the ramp of exit 33, I'd tell you, wild daisies mixed with a healthy dose of devil's paintbrush. For you, I'd paint the sky a misty blue-gray rolling into a smudged mud. I'd reenact the sudden action as well, such as the storm that erupted 2.4 minutes after passing the patch of flowers, when the black mass overhead opened in a fit of spring hail. You would see the pea-sized ice balls, which forced my kidnapper to park under an overpass, say, son of a bitch, 3 times, smoke 1 cigarette, flick the spent butt, and begin our trek again, 3.1 minutes after the first hailball crashed the hood of that criminal van. I morphed 48 hours of these transportation details into a movie I replayed every single day of my captivity, studying each minute, each second, each and every frame for clues and assets and analysis. Okay, so that's Method 1533. It is a book about how a young sociopath who is pregnant gets revenge and escape from a kidnapper. And there's a couple twists in there that are baked in. So my second reading, I want to thank Cynthia Palayo, who goes by Sina, I believe, for allowing me to read one of her beautiful poems from the book, Into the Forest and All the Way Through. I'm just sort of blown away by this book of poems, frankly. What she did is breathtaking. she went, and frankly, I don't know how long it took for her to do this, but she went and did research on missing or killed women. And she wrote a poem for each one of them. And she's included all of the details about when they went missing, the age they went missing, their race, and the investigating authorities, so that if anybody out there has any information whatsoever, to please call. And so the point of the book is to shed a light on missing or murdered women where the cases are unsolved. I, again, am floored by the amount of work it would have taken to do this. I am inspired that she would take this on as sort of a homework project for herself to highlight the plight of violence against women, and to do so with, frankly, poetry that is just astounding. I mean, I cried reading this. So I'm just going to read a short one from it, and it is from page 83, and it is called Doe-Eyed. The littlest doe, doe-eyed Jane, doe. I want to paint your nails red, but not the red that stains your cream-colored knit sweater. I want to play dollhouse with you, but not the moldy, brutal, mildewed house whose basement you were found. I want to comb your hair, your beautiful hair. I can only imagine it was smooth as a spider's web. But only those insects know where your face is. Now, as that was missing when they found you there. Name, Jane Doe. Remains found, St. Louis, Missouri. Race, black. Age at disappearance, 8 to 11. Year discovered, 1983. Case status, unsolved. Investigating agency, St. Louis Police Department, 314-444-0100. 314-444-0100. And again, there's the title, Into the Forest and All the Way Through by Cynthia Pelayo. I really highly recommend this, not only for the value that it has in fighting crime against women, but it's just a beautiful book of poetry that you should have in your collection. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, it's definitely very apt with what's going on in the world today. So, thanks for that reading, Shannon. We shall move on to the questions that we have for you. So the first question, your books feature compelling and resilient, strong female characters with complex inner lives. For example, the main character in 1533, Lucy and Gretchen, and even Vivienne in Extraordinary Journey of Vivienne Marshall. So who or what were your inspirations for your female characters?
I know a lot of very strong women. I would say my mother, my best friend, all of my girlfriends. I've been a litigator for 22 years. So I've worked with a lot of really strong women. So probably I'm pulling from that entire potluck of people.
That's nice. Yeah, well, definitely in litigation you do meet many tough, strong women.
Yeah.
The mystery crime genre has its share of female stereotypes and tropes, ranging from fridging a female victim to kickstart the male protagonist's investigation to being the psychopath themselves, for example, in Method 1533. So how do you challenge stereotypes and subvert tropes to create female characters with complexity and agency when dealing with the world around them, including situations that involve sexism, misogyny, and violence against women and girls.
Right. Uh, so I don't know if I'm going to answer this the right way. I can just say what I do and what I found I wanted as a reader, and so I wanted to turn that into what I wrote. But the thing with women characters and tropes and cliches around them, I feel like we think that they're cliches and tropes when that woman character is not well developed, right? When it's just sort of shallow. And so it's one thing to have a woman raped in a novel, and if that's used as just sort of a shallow device to give a male character substance, well, I think that's what people have a problem with, right? Because it's really not the viewpoint of the victim. It's not her background. It's not what happens afterwards. It's not the failed system that fails to often to find the rapist or the really to investigate it at all. So my approach on women that I write about is they might be victims, they might be villains. So I've also written a lot of women characters who are villains. But no matter what, I really do try to give them the background as to why they are the way they are, and then what is the forward-going impact, or what is their path because of that, right? So one of the bad guys in the Vines is named Kate Draymond, and she's a classic villain. She's like a Cruella de Vil kind of bad woman, which is fine because there are bad women in the world. But the question I challenged myself with was, why is she bad? And I did the same with in Gretchen. There is also a bad counterpoint to the protagonist. And the question that I challenged myself with her especially is, why is she like this? Why is she doing these bad things, right? And that caused me to have to, dwell deep into what her backstory is. And at the end of the day, I've had readers say to me about that bad character. They've said, it's awful what she did. It is absolutely terrible what she did to this main character. But at the same time, I'm conflicted because I feel bad for her. You're sad for her. And so for me, when writing about women, whether they're victims or heroes or straight up villains, because, hey, this is fiction, I just want to make sure that they're trying to show the complexity of what it's like to be a woman. And I can tell you, being a woman, I know that I am strong. I know that I am weak. I know I have flaws, but I also know I have strengths. And I also know that I have a backstory and I have a forward story. And I'm not just one thing. I'm not just a mom, and I'm not just a lawyer or a writer or a daughter. Many things, as we all are.
Yeah. So the idea is essentially fleshing out the character to see that, the different complexities.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, following from the mention of the characters in Greta, your novels definitely pass the Bechdel test. With their depiction of complex and interesting relationships between women and girls. So, for example, the friendship between Greta and Lucy. Why do you think that many mystery crime thriller authors still have trouble writing stories that pass the Bechdel test, despite the fact that there are many more things that women talk about other than men? True.
That's really funny. I don't know how to answer that. I have to confess that I'm one of those readers that if I'm not into a book, I just finish it. And I mean, I just, I don't finish. So if a book is doing something like that and I'm seeing it's not having that kind of flavor that I want. So I don't know. I don't know what that's about. I don't know. I can just say that what I love as a reader is I love when women characters have many different angles, because I don't know, none of the women I know who are, I would call strong, none of them are always strong, and every single one of them has some flaw, like I do, that makes them human. So I don't know why that's hard to grasp, because I can tell you right now, women talk about a hell of a lot more than men. I mean, we
That's
talk
true.
about men, we do, but I mean, there's a hell of a lot more going on in our internal life.
Exactly. Well, fair enough. Perhaps following from that, what can you suggest for writers who want to write female conversations and relationships realistically?
Well, I mean, I guess if they're women, I would assume that they're drawing from their real life experiences. Um, and that I would encourage them to have to do that. I would encourage writers to consider, if it works for them, including flaws, even in their best character. I think we all want that, right? Because it's realistic. I think if you're a man, I mean, I've read a lot of male authors who capture women characters great. I mean, women at the end of the day are human just like men. And so it's really just making sure that you're capturing that human element and all the complexities. Probably the added challenge for men, of course, is being able to understand the additional challenges that come with being a woman, right? So the challenges of childbearing, um, of having reproductive rights and being afraid about that, of being afraid for your own personal safety in just walking to your car. I don't know that a lot of men know what that feels like. I'm not saying they don't, but I'm saying that it is a unique feeling, at least for me. I can imagine having that constant fear, especially where I'm tinier. But for all women, the other thing is the internal sort of emotional stuff that goes on as you age and you enter premenopause, and the things and the issues and the concerns that come up with that, and losing your ability to have children if you want to, or and the pressures about having children or not having children, working while being a mother. All of those things are women issues that drive who we are. For most of us, we're not all the same, but those are common things. And for a male writer writing up a woman, from that perspective, my only suggestion, I'm not saying men can't do it, and I've certainly seen men do it, but you probably want to step into those shoes and think about those angles, and probably read, some women who have written memoirs about those things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great advice. Um, so you write a wide range of female characters with their own agency, and some, like the main character in Method 1533, can be classified as a sociopath. So readers may perceive, such characters as unlikable instead of lauding them as compelling and edgy characters, as they would if they were male. So, when you
Right.
write your books,
Right.
do you ever feel pressured by cultural and social expectations to make your female characters relatable and likable?
I feel the pressure, but I reject it, because you're right, and I did battle that with Method 1533, because when you first start reading the book, some people have said to me they loved it right away, and they got it right away, but some people said it took me a little bit to get this character because she's distant. Well, she's a sociopath. And so we've seen that with Dexter. We see that with American Psycho. We've seen that with many male characters, right? They are distant because they're sociopaths. And so I really challenge the notion that women can't write difficult characters. And I want to continue writing very difficult characters.
Glad to hear it. Some female authors have talked about getting flack for not making a female character likable enough. Have you encountered the same type of pushback?
You know, in some ways, I mean, some ways, yes. I would say when you are writing a woman in her 40s, who is damaged but strong professionally, it is hard to get readers to immediately like that character. It is hard to understand a woman in her 40s who is damaged but hard charging and sort of somewhat male, having male characteristics. And I'm confused by that, frankly, that sort of feedback, because I only know women like that, and I love them all. And so I am challenged by that. I'm not going to give up on it, because that is a real world woman for many people, right? It's not your perfect. I don't even know what the perfect woman is. I don't even know anymore. I wouldn't be able to write one. I don't know what that means to be perfect and perfectly likable all the time. So yeah, I guess I do find that, but I've also chosen to write those kinds of characters. So I want to. I do want to have representation of professional women, middle-aged, who have some kind of flaw or damage.
So realistic characters.
Yeah, and realistic, right? Definitely realistic, but also realistic in the way that they're not 100% likable, right? There's something to not like about them.
Yeah,
that's okay, I think. So there's a great book, Eileen. It's called Eileen. I'll look up the name. It's a fabulous book. And that's the kind of character. Like, she's middle-aged. There's something flawed about her. It's a dark book. It's really fantastic, page turner. And, that's a kind of character that I like to write and read.
So there is a wide range of male characters in your books as well, some of whom treat female characters respectfully and who are not afraid to show their emotions. Do you think reframing how stories describe men and boys away from hostile and toxic stereotypes and towards complexity and even vulnerability can be one of the ways crime thriller writers can break away from toxic tropes that promote toxic masculinity and dehumanization of women?
That's a great question.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, just like women are not one-dimensional, men are not one-dimensional. And I know a lot of great men, my husband and my son being a couple, that are not toxic. My brothers, my father. And so I, again, like all the women in my life, draw from, and a lot of men that I work with are actually not toxic. They're really wonderful. So yeah, that's really important to me, that if there is a good male character in any of my books, they are not toxic. They are egalitarian. They want equality totally between the female character and the male. And it's not contrived. It's just the way they are. And they cry. They have emotions. They're human.
Do you think that the violent and domineering alpha male type character would eventually phase out in the crime thriller genre, or do you think it's one of those stereotypes that will stick around for much longer than expected?
I think that there's so many books on the market now. There's just so much competition that you kind of, I'm sure they're always going to be there, but you kind of can't get away with that anymore. I'm sure there's a market for that one-dimensional male toxic whatever, and that's fine. I mean, some people love to read that, and I'm not knocking anything that people want to read. But for it to really be a bestseller that is appealing to all demographics and men and women, I don't really think you can get away with doing that anymore. I think you have to have characters that have depth and aren't this, this shallow, toxic
Alpha male.
alpha male. I don't think you can get away with it. It's just not going to be. It's not going to be marketable. It's just not going to be successful.
So, books and stories in the mystery, crime, and thriller genres usually involve some kind of violence, including violence against women. How do you find a balance between showing your violence as an integral part of the story and not showing violence gratuitously in your books?
Well, I have good editors. I'm not going to lie and tell you I get the balance exactly right out of the gate. I've certainly, so for example, in Byberry Grove, which is the sequel to Method 1533. I'm not going to get this right. Here we go. I had a scene in here that was really brutal and really violent. And my editor, thankfully, had some suggestions on how to scale that back. So there's a balance, right? Because if you're writing crime and thrillers, psychological thrillers, some of mine are borderline horror, right? You have to write violence. There's going to be violence in those kinds of books, and violence is real. But there's a balance of how much. If you do too much, then it's gratuitous. So sometimes it's in the language that you use. Just a couple sentences can be gratuitous, and sometimes the length of the scene makes it gratuitous. So it's really just having that internal sort of measure going as you're reading it, and then having a really good editor.
Yeah. So in your opinion, can mystery, crime, thriller, and even horror stories be used to address the issue of sexism, misogyny, and violence against women? And if so, how?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think that anytime anybody reads something from somebody else's perspective, they learn something. So what I would hope somebody takes away from my books is I bleed into every single one of them what it feels like to be a woman, what it feels like to be brutalized, what it feels like to be victimized or be afraid and be scared, and what those realities are. And so if you can do that in the capsule of an entertaining novel, right, you are educating somebody while you're entertaining them. And I do think that changes minds and viewpoints, or it can. That's my
hope. Which is precisely what you did in Method. How do you think mystery, crime, and thriller authors can tackle the issue of violence against women without falling back on harmful stereotypes and tropes?
I think it's not making rape or beating women sort of a shallow, gratuitous scene. It's if you're going to have rape, if you're going to have beating women, right? A lot can be said about that with less words, less graphic detail, right? And more can be said about the impact on the character, on the victim, and how she came to be in that situation and how she dealt with it afterwards. So I'm not one of the authors who thinks that you should not write about rape. I'm not an author who thinks you should not write about beating women. I think we should, because those are realities for women. But yeah, I guess it's the language and the length at which you describe those horrible scenes. It's more about the impact on the victim and how they deal with it.
So essentially, it's to mirror reality, but to be careful as to how you do it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So in 2018, the Staunch Prize, an award set up to recognize crime and thriller novels without violence against women, was launched and faced criticism from major crime novelists like Val McDermid, who believed that as long as there is violence against women in the world, it should be reflected in fiction, like you said.
Yeah.
So, what is your take on the idea that mystery, crime, and thriller books can work without some form of violence against women? Do you think it's feasible given some of the long-standing genre conventions and tropes?
I do think it's feasible. I think that, every author out there should make their own decisions on what they want to write and how they want to tell the story. I have chosen, and I agree with Val McDermott. I hadn't heard her comments on that, but if you say that's what they are, I would agree with that. I personally have chosen to write about violence against women because it's true, it's out there, and we need to talk about it. But that doesn't mean that there can't be an award for other authors who choose not to do that, because there are readers for that. And as long as there are readers for certain things, then great. I know, for example, that I have a trigger warning at the beginning of Guy Grove because it includes rape. And I respect readers who don't want to read that. So if there are mystery and crime novelists out there who choose to write that way, well, good for them. I think that's great. It doesn't mean they shouldn't and we shouldn't. It's not exclusive, I don't think, and I don't think it should be.
Fair enough. As a genre, thrillers, be they action thrillers or psychological thrillers, seem to be very male dominated, with female characters always being the victims or the damsel in distress. Do you think this is changing more as women start writing in this genre?
I do think it's changing more. I would like to see a hell of a lot more change. I would like to see a hell of a lot more headlining women getting the blockbuster PR behind them, like male authors get. I don't think it's equal there. I definitely don't think it's equal for people of color at all. We've at least seen some push this year to getting people of color better publishing deals and publicity.
Yeah.
And it's really all about the publicity is what it is. And so that needs to change. That needs to increase significantly.
So, moving on to our question on parents. Parents are usually the most influential role models in a person's life. As a mom, what do you think parents can do to help prevent violence against women and girls in future generations and to get boys involved in helping to do so?
I never like to comment on how other people parent, but I can tell you what's been important in parenting in my house. I have a white, blonde, blue-eyed boy. So probably and both of his parents work professional careers. So you could say he's at the top of the chain in terms of privilege. It has been my objective to make sure that he understands he's privileged, and he definitely understands that. Although I probably need to do some more work on that. He's a good kid. He is. He's a very good kid. But we've also, thankfully, my husband's a really great husband, and we've always encouraged our son to show his emotions. I think that's probably one of the biggest things is giving them the freedom to show their emotions. So if you are sad, you're not told you're acting like a child or a girl. That's never ever been said in our home. He is very open with his emotions, and that's very much encouraged. So that's the second thing, is never discouraging emotions. And then the third thing is, anytime I've seen him make jokes about women the way boys do. I mean, he's a teenager, right? He's very well aware of his mother's view on things. Right. He knows what his mother writes. He knows what his mother does for a career. He knew I was incredibly distraught when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died on Friday, and he was very comforting. So we're very open about being equal in this house. So I think probably the other thing parents can do, especially if they're raising males, is we've been lucky, and not everybody is lucky to have both a mother and a father in the house, right? A lot of people are single parent. So it's a little unfair for me to say this. But for us, my husband has been a co-parent, and that they learn by what they see. And I'm not saying it's better to co-parent. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that my son wasn't raised to assume that the woman does everything in raising them. Yeah. That's all I meant by that. But certainly, if you're a single mom raising a child, the child is seeing that the mother is working her butt off, right? And that's also an amazing lesson.
So, you have been incredibly supportive of our Read for Pixels campaign and also our anti-violence against women work as a whole, rightfully so. So, this is a question we usually ask all of the authors that we have on Read for Pixels. Why do you support the cause to end violence against women?
Oh, it's my number one thing in life. I mean, it's never going to end. It's been here for thousands of years, and we've got to push and keep pushing the envelope here. We're getting a huge setback in the United States, as we all know, which will have worldwide ramifications. Women lose rights in the United States. That's going to have a domino effect around the whole world, and it's already pretty dire around the whole world. Yeah. We're talking about reproductive rights. We're talking about fighting the notion that men can get away with whatever the hell they want to. Our president right now is getting away with numerous allegations of rape. Bob Kraft, charges were dropped on him, but not on the women he paid. It's just everywhere, and it's disgusting. And we have to keep fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting and never stop. And that's why I support this project.
That's the most strong answer I've heard in a while.
It's infuriating. And let me just say one more thing. The other reason why I'm furious about it is I used to devote all of my attorney pro bono time. So I work at a very big firm, and we are encouraged. It's a great firm. We are encouraged to do pro bono. Every year we're encouraged to have a good amount of hours doing pro bono work. I used to focus on human trafficking, and I used to work with a safe home in Massachusetts, and I helped with a human trafficking victim who was suing a hotel. And I was involved in that. That was my focus for pro bono. And then Trump got elected. And since then, I have had to focus all of my pro bono time on asylum issues, which are also important, and I want to focus on. But think about that, right? Think about the fact that you've got highly qualified litigators in the United States who were focused on a number of different pro bono issues, asylum being one of them, but also human trafficking, and also a multitude of other issues, homelessness, getting gun control, numerous other pro bono avenues. And everybody I know has had to focus in the last 4 years on all of the crap and the illegal human rights violations that this administration has kicked up. That is what our focus has had to be on, is just fighting this stuff that actually we shouldn't have to fight because there's already laws on it. So it's infuriating to me, and I'm angry about it. And I'm especially angry about it these days because now we're looking down the barrel of a far-right, religious extremist Supreme Court justice that's going to unravel even more rights. So yeah, I'm really angry about it, and it just encourages me more to focus on groups like Pixel that are trying to focus on this, because right now the truth is I don't have time to focus on what I want to, which is women's rights and human trafficking. I'm focusing on other issues, and most of them are related to the Trump administration.
That's brilliant. It's really great to hear someone say it that way. Um, what do you think authors can do to help with the cultural change needed to eradicate violence against women and girls?
What authors can do?
Authors. I mean, you could weigh in from, maybe a different perspective as well if you wish.
Oh, I think it's, if you're writing about human trafficking, if you're writing about rape, it's really getting involved in the organizations that help those victims, and talking to those victims if you can when doing your research, to make sure you really capture what the issue is, and then in your promotions try to incorporate how other people can get involved and help. I mean, a great example is what Cynthia did with her poems. She's a mystery thriller writer, and she did all this work to highlight missing and murdered women in poems. I mean, that's a really great example of what mystery and crime thriller writers can do. Maybe it's not a book of poems, but maybe it's something else. Maybe it's something ancillary to writing a mystery or a thriller like that.
Well, that's the end of our questions. So, yeah. So I'm going to put myself back on screen. So basically, just to reiterate everything that we've said earlier on today's session, Shannon has generously donated a couple of awesome treats to the stash of author goodies we have up as perks for donors at the Read for Pixels Rally Up fundraising page. So the first goodie is Shannon Kirk's bundle for beginners. Again, this is for US donors only. Shannon will be putting together a bundle featuring all the books signed and personalized. The bundle includes Method 1533, Verbery Grove, Gretchen, In the Vines, The Extraordinary Journey of Vivienne Marshall, and The Night of the Flood. And she will also be tucking in some really gorgeous surprise swag. And the second goodie is that Shannon will be critiquing a 30-page of your work in progress. So this is available to donors worldwide. And essentially this includes what this is, that Shannon is offering a chance for one donor to get a written critique from her via email. This opportunity includes one written critique of the first 30 pages of your work in progress, one round of up to 3 follow-up questions via email with Shannon after she has sent you her critique. There is just one of this golden opportunity available, which would be perfect for any writer anywhere in the world who is focused on writing in the mystery crime genre. Shannon's goodies are now up on our fundraising page, so you better hurry up to donate it and get it, because she only has one of each type of goodie. Once someone snaps it up, it is gone. So guys, get to it. If you really, really want it, please donate. And there are plenty more author goodies available from authors including Kat Cho, Samantha Shannon, Sebastian de Castel, Sarah Gailey, Kelly Garrett, Meg Gardner, R.J. Barker, Tamora Pierce, Alwyn Hamilton, Marshall Ryan Maraska, and more. So new goodies will be released every Friday throughout September. We have raised $2,915 towards our $5,000 goal so far, which is our slowest fundraiser yet. So please give generously before the fundraiser ends on 18th of October. All funds go towards the Pixel Project's work to help end violence against women. And as Shannon said, we should all be pumped up, revved up to end this, issue. So please do what you can on your part. I will be sharing a slide, essentially. So the 1 second. This will take a while. So if you wish to donate, as mentioned, these are the links. Yeah. So if you want to donate, I think our chat box moderator will be putting up the link on the chat box YouTube sidebar. So if you want to donate, please go to our Rally Up page at http://bit.ly R for Rally Up 2020. And if you want to learn more about Read for Pixels, you can visit http://bit.ly/read for pixels to find out more about violence against women and what you can do about it. Visit the Pixel Project website at www.thepixelproject.net. So Shannon, do you have any announcements that you wish to share with our viewers today?
Yes. So I have a short story coming out in the anthology edited by Jeffrey Deaver called Nothing Good Happens After Midnight. It comes out in November. My story is called Tonight is the Night, and it is about a serial killer or two.
Yay. More fun stories. So that is it for our session today. Thank you everyone for joining us. Have a good day or a good night wherever you are in the world.